The modern professional operating system is defined by relentless motion. From the moment the workday begins, the mind acts as an engine, grinding through complex tasks under sustained pressure. There is a common assumption that simply stopping work-related labor automatically triggers neurological recovery. We assume that if we are no longer productive, the brain is resting. This is visible in the habit of finishing a stressful project, closing the laptop, and immediately pulling out a smartphone to scroll through a high-stimulation digital feed. This transition ignores the biological reality of focus. Shifting attention from a spreadsheet to a social media feed is not rest. It is a modality shift in cognitive exertion. Your body might be physically stationary on the couch, but neurologically, your brain is still processing information at a high velocity. This creates a chronic recovery deficit. When we examine the psychology of peak performance, exhaustion is rarely caused by the workload itself, but by a lack of actual system recovery. Without genuine recovery, the mind remains in a state of high-stress processing. Over time, the biological hardware is pushed past its capacity, leading to the symptoms of burnout. Until we distinguish mere distraction from genuine recovery, the brain remains in a high-stress loop that eventually degrades performance and decision-making. To understand the system's drain, we must look at the mechanics of digital distraction. It represents an unyielding bombardment of external data points on the nervous system. This anatomical sketch illustrates the computational load of passive scrolling. Even casually watching a video forces the brain to evaluate rapid visual images, comprehend audio tracks, and parse text. This consumption requires a continuous stream of micro-decisions. The prefrontal cortex must rapidly determine what to click, what to like, and what to ignore. As these data vectors multiply, the neurological activity creates a state of cognitive overload. This prevents the executive function from entering a recovery state. Digital distraction replaces productive stress with passive stress, meaning the nervous system never receives a clear signal that the labor is over. Because the brain is still processing inputs, the body remains in a heightened state of alert. This is why you can spend 3 hours on a couch and still feel detached, frustrated, and drained by the end of the evening. Subjecting the brain to high-stress processing under the guise of entertainment speeds up the depletion of your mental resources. We have to view cognitive energy as a strictly finite biological reserve rather than an abstract feeling. This represents that capacity. Every choice made throughout the day draws from this single mental bank account. Complex tasks like prioritizing projects or solving abstract problems extract large volumes of this energy, causing the reserve level to drop. Even small tasks like regulating emotions in a meeting or choosing what to wear cause the energy to drain in continuous increments. By late afternoon, the account is nearly empty. This explains the exhaustion felt by leaders and creators. They carry a cumulative burden of constant micro-decisions that exhausts the reserve before day's end. Since every input and output carries a biological cost, an unbroken chain of work and digital consumption guarantees a depleted tank. What happens to the human operating system when this biological reserve reaches zero? When experiencing decision fatigue, the brain does not simply shut off. This cross-section demonstrates the reality of ego depletion. To conserve what remains of its energy, the brain secretly lowers its computational standards. High-level, intricate connections darken and sever. The brain stops prioritizing accuracy and long-term goals. Complex executive functions are bypassed in favor of low-effort pathways that require less processing power. The biology defaults to heuristic shortcuts, choosing whatever action requires the minimum amount of effort to ensure immediate survival. This survival shift leads to behavioral failures, like skipping workouts or snapping at partners. The apparent loss of passion late in the day is a biological side effect of a brain prioritizing survival over complex decision-making. You cannot fix an empty biological tank with productivity hacks or workflow optimizations. Tactics like time blocking or pre-committing to decisions are forms of productivity triage. They are different from neurological recovery. Triage slows the rate of energy depletion and buys you time, but it does not refill the biological reserve. Genuine recovery requires a physiological baseline reset, achieved through the true rest protocol. This requires the cessation of all new information processing and complex language evaluation. This represents the target environment. It is a low dopamine, zero screen state where the mind wanders aimlessly, free from external agendas or threats. Entering this state of silence will initially feel uncomfortable as the brain detoxes from constant digital stimulation. Sitting in this low dopamine state is the only known biological condition where the executive function can reboot and restore high-level judgment. The primary barrier to this protocol is the guilt professionals feel when they are not actively producing or consuming. Sustainable high performers treat neurological recovery with the same discipline as their work. This requires making downtime non-negotiable. To execute the protocol, you must enforce 3 rules: go off the grid, eliminate screens, and maintain a low dopamine environment. Leaders who never disconnect model a culture of chronic depletion, which eventually causes the entire organization to suffer from compromised judgment. We have to stop treating severe cognitive fatigue as an unavoidable part of adulthood and stop feeding the brain fake rest. Building rigid, off-the-grid boundaries is the only way to reverse decision fatigue,